So, what we would say is the Davidic line is always patrilineal. If Jesus has no biological father, it means that he cannot possibly ever come from the Davidic line.
Excellent. Can I counter that now?
Yes, you can.
Okay, so if it must be patrilineal, I would say that, I mean, God the Father, as such, is the main patriarch, as it were. But Genesis counters this objection prior to it happening. We see that there is going to be only one seed of a woman, and therefore her patrilineage, her father and her forefathers. Yeah, it's an open air asylum. But basically, yeah, that counters that to some respect. Either way, if we're going strictly by obviously Judaic law doesn't particularly have much time for Jesus, you may be surprised.
No, obviously.
But if we're going patrilineal, Joseph is he's the husband of Mary prior to the birth, where it says actually, they didn't know each other carnally until afterwards. However, they were betrothed, and therefore, without evidence of another father, because the Jews would suggest, I guess, that either Joseph or someone else is the father, he would still be of the line of David. But that aside, Mary is also.
I find it interesting.
And all of the other, there are countless fulfilled prophecies. Whether the Jews, they're in a rock and a hard place. They can't accept them without. They've got two messiahs coming. They've got no Satan, if you see what I mean. That's their theology.
How do they have two messiahs, sorry?
They have bin David and bin Yosef.
Bin Yosef, yeah.
Yes,
bin Yosef,
but Jesus actually can fit the criteria of both of those. There's a messiah of peace and a messiah of war. And what Jesus came, he didn't come and overthrow the Romans. He came to free his people, not from the secular oppression, but from the oppression of sin.
But you do realise Cyrus is a messiah as well?
No. What's your definition of messiah?
Anointed one.
Anointed
it literally says the word
mean,
Messiah in that he is the Messiah. That will send the Jews back to build the temple from Persia.
But that's one.
And he's not even Jew; he's a pagan.
That's one purpose. But that's Old Testament again. So for Christian theology,
what I'm demonstrating to you is that there are other situations where Messiah is a multitude.
Yeah, but that's not either the Jew or the Christian. But like what I'm saying is,
it still says Messiah.
But that's
what you have to concede is a Gentile can be the Messiah.
I don't have to concede anything based on that. No, I don't, because I don't have a Jewish theology.
Okay.
You see?
Okay, yeah, fine. Yeah, you have a Christian.
So, yes. So, but the Messiah that is
brought up.
Okay, well, I'm going to tell you about Isaiah. Step back a bit because he's moved the camera.
Am I too close?
I guess so. I don't know. The Messiah foretold in Isaiah has got divinity as a requirement. It says, "Unto us a child will be born." So that's already throwing out that's unbelievable for the Jews, because it's going to go on to say, and he will be God. So, unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, denoting kingship or rulership, and he will be called Eternal Father. Now, for the Jews, Father is synonymous with God. So he will be called God. He will be the mighty counselor. That's the Holy Spirit for Christians. All of these prophecies of this coming child who will rule are... he has to be human to be born. Unto us a child is born, and he has to be divine. So, other anointed people, his anointing, he has glory that was shared with the Father according to the New Testament before the world was. He is the Lamb slain before the sin entered the world. So it's preordained, and in John 1, even though there's a lot of polemic around 17:3, in John 1, we see that the Word who was God and with God is Jesus, just by line like 14.
John does a very good job at fixing that Christology. Yeah, I get that.
Well, I don't know about fixing, but maybe...
Well, no one else calls him the Logos in any other gospel prior, which is interesting.
Yeah, but they call him Son of God. They call him...
But where's the Logos? Because you got to remember, Logos, the word Logos is very interesting.
Yes.
Because it makes him...
So it's not in the Old Testament.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, yeah. But it makes him God, essentially, because it's God's speech.
No, he is God.
Exactly. That's what I mean.
Linguistically, you could say that's an affirmation.
Right.
But for example...
But my issue is this.
Yeah.
Why don't we see Logos or Word of God found anywhere in your earlier
so
Gospels?
the Synoptic Gospels...
Yes, because John's not synoptic.
Yes, exactly. So the thing, I guess, for my satisfaction, because I don't ever believe anything unless I really do look into it.
Which you should.
Exactly, but sadly, many people just live because their mum said so, their dad said so, whatever. But for my mind, the similarities are not evidence of copying or that kind of thing, just that out of the way. But John says that, there are so many things to write that it would fill too many books. He's basically saying ... at the end. John has got a different... He's
got a different Christology.
He's considered to be... No, he hasn't got a different Christology. He has a higher Christology because
different.
Matthew was essentially talking to Jews. He was reporting this for Jews, and that is why he's so bent on having the Jewish genealogy right at the top, because he knew that these run-of-the-mill, everyday Jews, they're waiting on a certain kind of Messiah.
Yeah.
And he's trying to introduce the idea that he is the Jewish Messiah, and that he is...
Happy Easter.
Happy Easter, darling. He is risen. He ain't in the tomb. It's all good. Right, where was I? Yes, so because John differs in as much as his higher Christology, without John in the Bible, it is still easily attestable that Christ is divine.
I think you'd find a harder time proving
Not me,
divinity.
love.
I know,
Not me, babes. Maybe
yeah.
other people.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
But
That
I think
sounds arrogant. I don't mean
oftentimes
it
when obviously I think it's a stupid argument, but a lot of Muslims will say, can you prove Jesus
Yes.
is God from the New Testament?
I'm getting there.
Fine. No,
I'm
no,
going to give you one verse.
Brother, I'm not even contesting that. I believe that John.
You think that the New
John does
Testament
say it,
proclaims him as God? Not
Of
only
course,
no,
of
without
course.
John.
No.
Matthew, I can do it with
I believe
easily.
that you'll find oftentimes they always go to John, and it's because
Because John 17:3 says, the only true God is the Father.
No, that's not even what I'm talking about. I'm saying I am the bread of life. Before
yeah.
Abraham was, I am.
The I am, the seven I am.
Yeah.
I've got you.
I and the Father are one.
Yes.
I am the bread of life. All this stuff, all these big statements,
Yes. Yeah, they're massive.
The logos, the word
They're
of God.
massive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't find any of those in your earlier
No,
gospels.
you're absolutely right. Linguistically, there's no...
Which is strange. For me,
no,
it would be
it's not
strange.
strange.
To you. But
Because
for me,
no,
and I
there's
think anyone objectively looking at this, it would
I
seem
am
strange.
objectively looking at it.
Sure.
I just told you that.
Sure.
So there is a thing such as discernment, but even as I don't know how it is to read the Bible without being a Christian. I do. That's a fib. Right, John's Christology. Right, so take out John for an instance. I wouldn't want to, but let's not throw him away. Let's remove him from this equation.
Keep him over here.
The three synoptics, Revelation. Are we going to? I don't know.
No, Revelation is too far.
Okay,
And that's John
the
as well.
epistles
That's John
of
as well.
Paul, also, and James, and all of them. Right, Matthew 14:27.
For me, I don't even want Paul. I
Okay,
want the Synoptic
Matthew.
Gospels.
Matthew.
The Gospels.
Okay, so I'm always being told, but you don't speak Arabic. It's in the Arabic. It's the Arabic. In the Aramaic, plain English Bible, in Matthew 14:27 and in other places, when the storm is calmed and they say, "Who is this who can even calm the storm?" and he says, "Fear not, I am the living God." And that's from his mother tongue.
I know what you're quoting, and that's only one translation.
It's the Aramaic is my point. I'm always being told Arabic supersedes any English translation.
I'll be honest, I've seen that same verse, and every other translator translates it
Because
differently.
it's not from the Arabic, it's from the Greek. Do you understand? So the transmission of the Bible,
Well, hang on,
let me
sorry,
tell you
sorry,
something
Kate.
you may
Yeah,
not
go on,
realise.
go on.
All New Testaments are translated from the Koine Greek,
I get that.
other than the Peshitta or the Aramaic Bible. So that accounts wholly for that discrepancy, because I am ego ami in the Greek, and Yah in the Hebrew is the name of God. No, I am.
Yeah, Yuva is the name of God.
YH.
But you can't really say
We're going to go
It's a tetragrammaton. You can't
Exactly.
Really say it.
No, but I'm not saying Yahweh. I'm saying
you-
Yah.
yeah, I know
Yah
you-
means
you
I
did.
am.
That's
Yahweh
right.
means I am that I am.
That's right. Yeah, you did.
So,
sorry.
it's all right. So that's from Matthew, for example. There are other, the nuances of the Bible. So the taking this into consideration of this verse, in consideration of that verse. Jesus, for one, is in every book of the Old Testament and New Testament. He's there foreshadowed or alluded, he's a high priest in the order of...
Melchizedek?
Yes, so he clearly isn't, because there is no priesthood other than the Levites and the Aaronites at that stage. But Melchizedek has
That's
no
another
beginning.
problem, Kay, by the way. You
No,
can't
it's
be from
not.
the Davidic line and a Levitical line as well. There's no
He's
such
not.
thing.
He isn't, though, is he? He's
he-
a high priest in the order of Melchizedek. Melchizedek has no mother or
But
father. He's
also
from
the high
no
priest.
line.
No, but he's also
High priest, he's
yeah.
God.
Yeah, so but where does the high priest come from?
Because God
Levitical.
okay, so
You can't be
Hebrews.
both. There's a
Hebrews.
priesthood and then there's a Davidic line.
In Hebrews. Yeah, but
That's Paul.
No,
That's Paul.
I don't care. Paul is the Bible. It's inspired by the Holy
I
Spirit.
know, but-
Yeah, but for your
Yeah.
reference, you're a Muslim, so
Look, me-
really
me-
your opinion
give
is
me
like...
Old Testament.
I am about
Give me
to,
Old
but I'm
Testament,
about to tell you about Hebrews, because it's quoting the Psalms, and which is obviously Old Testament. So the Father, which the Jews, we know that's God in his entirety, calls the Son God. He says, your throne, O God, will endure forever. This world and this heaven will pass away, but your words will by no means pass away.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and we see that because we're supposed to be talking about Easter anyway, not Christmas or paganism.
Of course.
That
We don't want to upset Soko.
so the Davidic that you're arguing is the physical DNA line, is the flesh that Christ took on.
That's
The
right.
word became flesh, and it didn't transform into flesh. It took flesh onto itself and remains divine. So the Davidic prophecy is inherent within the humanity of Christ and the divinity of Christ. He is not only a high priest who is not ashamed to call Christians brothers and sisters because he was tempted in every way.
Yeah.
He is God. So, and even the Father calls him God. It says, to which of the angels has it been said, you are my son, in this day I am well pleased?
It sounds very Pauline. That's fine.
Lovely.
That's
I
no
love
problem.
a bit of Paul.
Of course
Paul
you do.
is a
Without any
don.
doubt,
Yeah,
of course.
and Allah doesn't mind Paul either because he calls him Bolos and he says he is actually who he's, who he says
no,
he is.
no, he doesn't.
He does. What is it? Well, he doesn't speak English, obviously.
No, he doesn't say. He doesn't. Bolus is one of the. It's Tafsir ibn Kathir, and he's.
You don't believe him?
No, I do believe. I love Ibn Kathir. He's brilliant. But
well?
in this situation, yeah, of course. In this situation, remember Ibn Kathir.
Are you telling me something that Ibn Kathir said, or your
No,
extrapolation?
I'm just telling you.
How you get around it?
No, not how I get around
Yeah.
it. Ibn Kathir, he is telling us for this Asbab an-Nuzul, the reason why this verse was brought down.
Yep.
He's giving reasons for it, right? He's giving reasons for it and things that he has heard. He doesn't make any claim anywhere that this line, talking about Bolus and Sadiq and Saduq, that's what you're referring to. He doesn't make the claim that this Asbab an-Nuzul, or this line narration for this Asbab an-Nuzul, this reason for revelation, is Sahih. He doesn't say that. He's
What
saying
does
this
it
is
say
what
at the
I've
bottom of
heard.
the page?
Say again?
Does it say at the bottom of the page, grade, Jerusalem,
It doesn't say.
anything?
That's
But
what
the
we call-
fact that the fact that he's usually attested with authenticity and
what I meant, that's what I meant.
trustworthiness.
Yeah.
The thing is that, to my mind, if Allah doesn't say explicitly otherwise, Allah says, for example, let's tafsirs and not even tafsirs, hadiths aside and all of that, Allah says that He will make those who follow Isa superior until the day of judgment. He also says that if Christian, or those who follow Isa, whatever you want to call Christians, I'm going to translate it as, don't stand on the gospel, he's going to be pretty upset. Like what he's saying is, you must stand on the gospel. You lot over here, if you're in doubt, you can go and ask them because they've got a book from ages ago kind of thing when there was miracles all over the place. But as for us, there's no miracle as in no signs and wonders. Muhammad's coming as a warner. He's telling you, get back on the straight path because the straight path must have been there to start with. He's not saying this. The quotes I'm
The
giving you
Quran
are,
does say it's a book of wonder and signs, though.
it says there is no miracle. I'm so sorry. Muhammad will bring no signs and wonders. And he's
It doesn't say it like that. Not in that
No,
way.
because it says it in
it's
Arabic.
saying that they're asking for it. They're asking for it.
And
but
it
it's
says
the
if you
idea-
want it, where are you going to go? Who are you going
that's
to
a
call?
different verse.
It's
It's
not
a different
Ghostbusters. No, he does say if
It's a
they
different
ask
verse.
you.
Look, let me just say
Are
one
we
thing,
allowed
right?
to do more than one
No,
verse?
I understand the verses that you're bringing
Yeah.
about Ahl Injil, right? The verse of Ahl Injil that you people of the gospel have nothing
You
to stand.
people.
Yeah, it's not,
Oh,
sorry.
I like that one.
Ahl Injil, the people, right? The Ahl Injil people
I'm
of the
not
gospel.
the Injil. It's not in heaven. The Injil is Jesus.
No problem.
Jesus is the good
I'm referring
news.
to what us Muslims believe to be the Injil, right?
Excellent.
So what we
Babes,
believe to be an
excuse
Injil.
me.
Oh, sorry, sorry.
Love, hello. Sorry, babes, you got your foot on the. That's all
Okay,
right.
it's all right. A lot of cameras here, a lot of cameras. Right, so here's the point you see. That verse, Ahl Injil, and also the one about being uppermost, the uppermost one is talking about us. We're the ones, I'll tell you why. We're the ones who will vindicate Jesus, right? Isa ibn Maryam. We vindicate
You mean
him.
Isa? Please don't say
Sorry,
Jesus.
sorry, Isa ibn Maryam, that's right.
Yeah.
I'm not
The
gonna
one
say
who
Jesus.
didn't die on a cross.
Yeah. He didn't die.
The one who spoke from the.
We don't believe in the same person.
Did he speak from the cradle?
Say again?
He spoke from the cradle.
He did,
this
yeah.
season.
Yours
and
didn't.
And you're aware that the infancy heretical gospels have him speaking from the cradle.
We can find-
And
we
it's
also have things-
literally, some extra words have been added.
That's fine. We can have things. Remember, your gospels have so many. One second.
Sorry.
Your gospels have so many contradictions between them. There's so many
But
differences.
we don't say there is no contradiction.
I understand.
For 2,000
Oh, that's fine.
years and many
Can
writers.
I finish, Kate? Just one
Yeah,
second.
maybe.
Because I've been silent the whole time,
Okay.
right? So, when it comes to your Gospels,
Yes.
right, and how they were even canonized in the first place,
Yes.
we know that it was
Let's not-
arbitrary.
Let's not widen the
I'm
net.
not widening
Let's
it
get back
because-
to Isa.
No, but you've said something, so I need to respond,
Oh, okay.
right? So, when it comes to the canonization of your Gospels, a lot of it was arbitrary. Gospel of
How
Thomas.
does this change
I'll
Allah
tell you now.
quoting a heretical
I'll
text
tell
and
you now.
pretending it's
I'll tell you now. I'll tell you now.
what's his name?
I'll
Jibril.
tell you right now, right? Now, what was seen as heretical and what was not was entirely arbitrary.
But it's supposed to
which
come
means there
from
was no
Allah
point.
to
I understand.
not Iblis, sorry, to
understand.
Jibril
I
to
understand.
Muhammad.
Yeah.
Why is he reading poems and heretical? Like
Yeah,
whether
yeah.
it's heretical or not is irrelevant.
Yeah.
Why is he
very,
quoting
very,
stuff?
very funny with the Iblis thing, by the way.
No,
But
no,
anyway,
on
I know-
my
I know you-
life
I know
and
you
on
tried,
my
I know
word
you
as a
tried.
Christian,
That's fine,
you
that's
can
fine.
try
Yeah,
and
nice try. Hey,
slander
Suko, you got that one, yeah?
anyone listening.
Hey, what's up, man? You're right.
I couldn't remember the imaginary name of Gabriel for a second. I do apologise. And it wasn't intentional. I don't need that. I've got all of the Quranic scripts
No problem.
to
no problem. That's
joke
fine.
about.
That's fine. Anyway,
Yeah.
we'll let it go.
Thank you.
We'll let it go.
You're very kind. You're always Christian like. You're forgiving.
Anyway, so when it comes to obviously your gospels, completely arbitrary the way
Still
that they
not
were
talking about the
together.
Quran
I'm
now.
going to tell you now. Right. So when it comes to what the Quran is quoting and what it's not,
Right.
It's quoting sometimes things in your actual canon. For instance, the virgin birth. Right.
No,
so what
it's
are we
not. No, that's incorrect. It's not
Do we-
quoting
hang on,
it.
sorry, do you
It's
not
not
believe in
quoting
the
it.
virgin birth?
I do, but you don't.
But the Quran
But there's
says
the bit about
the Quran talks
Mary
about
under the palm tree.
It doesn't matter.
Maryam,
The
it
concept-
does matter. A
Listen,
quote,
listen.
no, sorry.
The concept of
In
virgin
English,
birth is there.
I don't know about Arabic. In English, a quote is something verbatim.
Okay, no problem.
You're
The
what is
concept.
done?
How about this? The concept.
The
Is that better?
concept, but
Is that better?
bastardised.
No
Yeah.
problem. In your opinion.
No,
So,
no.
when
In
it
the
comes-
opinion of anyone who
Okay,
looks
I'm
at that, but
gonna- okay, I'm
no,
gonna walk
I can't.
away.
You're
I'm gonna walk
ad-homing me.
away. I'm gonna
You're
walk
telling
away.
me in my opinion.
Okay, you're not allowing
Walk
me to
away as
speak.
much as you like. What I'm trying to
Hey,
explain to
hey.
you, but stop
Can we
talking
get-
nonsense.
Soko, can we
Jay,
get this time?
moderate this.
Can we get this time, please?
Yeah.
She's not letting me speak.
I am because you're throwing out Jim.
3 minutes. 2 minutes.
No. 1 minute will do.
1 minute?
We talk fast.
1 minute, yeah.
1 minute is fine.
1 minute, please. 1
As
minute.
many.
No, I can't get a
things.
word out. My God.
Yeah, because your God. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But we were trying to talk about your God. I'm trying not to. But
She
he's
can go
throwing
first.
out
I have no
ad-hoc.
problem with her going first. She can go first.
He's such a gentleman.
Yeah. You go first. Yeah, go on.
We love you,
Okay.
Go on.
I don't even know him. Anyway, right, so, I know, that's why I'm surprised I'm still here.
Yeah.
So,
Dumber.
in terms
you
of
got my thing.
defending the Quranic,
Have you started?
quoting or otherwise, paraphrasing or purloining of stories from older texts, when we know that Waraka was a transcriber of text, you're bypassing the, what I want you to do is defend the idea that it's come from Allah to Jibril to Muhammad. But you're not doing that. We're coming back to the Bible because it's something I said. You can discount whatever I said. Also, what I'm going to say is, in my opinion, for one, doesn't mean it's wrong, but for two, it's not my opinion. It's the opinion of language conventions of thousands of years, that a quote is a quote, a paraphrasing is the quote but in your own words, and if you change key details, it's no longer a quote or a reimagining. It's a bastardization of like it's a misrepresentation, but you can have the core elements, but of course it's not the same story. And if Allah needs to quote it rather than tell us, who is he?
You done?
Yeah,
Ready?
he said time.
Okay, right. So when it comes to the scriptures of old, the New Testament in particular, the New Testament, the way that it was put together, the way it was canonized, completely and utterly arbitrary. There was no reason behind why gospels were accepted. They were just accepted blindly. And certain gospels, if they didn't fit the narrative, they were discarded. And so, if now we know that these gospels were put together arbitrarily, if the Quran mentions something in a book that didn't make it into your canon, that is neither here nor there. Right? The idea is some things in your canonized version are mentioned in the Quran, some things in your non-canonized version are mentioned in the Quran. What we understand is, when it comes to information, it was all in circulation, and a lot of falsehood for the New Testament was in circulation as well.
Excellent. So if there's falsehood in the New Testament, Allah said He actually revealed the Gospels. If there's some arbitrary, we'll have that one, we'll have that one, we'll have a couple of them, that did not happen. He has no evidence of that because it didn't happen. In terms of canonization, the Jews had their 39 books as like set by the time of any councils that he may be imagining had the divinity of Christ, and then said that doesn't agree, that doesn't agree. And as back to the point that he didn't answer, Allah is not meant to be reading books, neither is Jibril. It's meant to be a divine revelation. It comes from Allah to Jibril. Jibril nips over to Muhammad, gives him a little revelation, and then he goes back for further information, or the next part of the revealing of the Quran and the Sunnah. So it's not about what did make it in and what didn't make it in, because Allah said He revealed the Torah, the Psalms and the Injil. He should know what's in there. He doesn't have to read books that by the time of Muhammad were well known among Christians to be nonsense, because if he did, he'd make himself look a bit silly. That's my argument. So tell me how a divine revelation is plagiarized.
Right. So when it comes to the Quran, when it comes to certain things that would made it into the Gospels and did not make it into
No, you're not answering my question. I apologise, but could you hold him to the question? Could you hold him to the question?
No, I can say whatever I want. If I'm not responding, Jay, 1 second. Okay, if I'm one second. If I'm not responding, your cameras are going to see that, and I'm going to be destroyed. So just allow me to bury myself.
Sure.
Thank you. You're starting.
I've got some rope. Go for it.
Right. So when it comes to the Quran is quoting things that may have been written down previously. There are some truths in the New Testament that you have today, and there are some truths in books that didn't make it into the New Testament. Again, my argument before, what Kay has danced around, is that a lot of these books were put together arbitrarily. There was no reason behind why certain Gospels were included. The only thing that was in mind for the early church fathers was, are these books going to convey our message? Are they going to present Jesus in the Christology that we want him to be presented in? Right? So the fact that the Gospel of Thomas or the Gospel of James doesn't make it into your New Testament has no bearing on the veracity. If Allah says it, and we know the Quran is Allah's speech, then he is just telling you truths that you already had, but you denied. Right? Gospel of Thomas could be true. Gospel of James could be true. It was arbitrary. You had no reason. Your New Testament fathers had no reason to discard those texts.
Sure. Okay, for one, I'd like you to look when the infancy Gospel of Thomas was written, and also James. The pseudo-epigraphia. So after Christ, there came a trend of writing Gospels and attributing them to an earlier time period, and they were known through. You could go like this, but Allah should know this. Allah should know. Allah should know that it was written 300 years later. Allah should know that in this imaginary arbitrary council. Firstly, he says it's arbitrary, but secondly, he said they're throwing things out to agree. So that's not arbitrary. That's with a purpose. So you have to define your terms. Again, I'm going to ask you point blank. Please answer. If you don't, that's your business. Why does Allah quote anything? He is all-knowing. He has an angel of the Lord, as it were, to bring his message, who's not anything other than Sahih, as it were. Why does he need to quote anything? And also, why does he misquote it? He doesn't get it right. In the infancy Gospels, Jesus in the cradle says, I am the Son of God.
Anyway, so again, when it comes to the Gospel of Thomas, right, the infancy Gospel of James, when it comes to that, if you're saying it, by the way, just so everyone knows, previous to this, she said that the Quran isn't quoting the New Testament or the Old Testament. In fact, she said misquoting, right? So she
I did. Give me a direct quote.
Wait. So she needs to decide what word she wants to use for this debate. No problem. So when it comes to what the Gospel of Thomas had, right? The Gospel of Thomas, by the way, it's dated to the 2nd century, the exact same time as all of their Gospels. All of their Gospels are dated to the 2nd century, every single one. In fact, most of them are dated to the 3rd century. So she has no business denying the veracity of any text when they come from the exact same time period. Right? What this demonstrates to us is that there was a plethora of different beliefs about Jesus, or Isa ibn Maryam, or Yeshi, whatever you want to call him. There were so many different beliefs about him scattered everywhere. And what the early church fathers needed to do was to get all the stuff that fitted with their narrative and put it together.
Okay, it's time done, yeah? So by the year 98, which everybody knows is 1st century, the skeleton of the New Testament was in existence. The epistles, certainly. The Gospels, Revelation, I'm not 100% sure, to be fair. There's no 2nd, 3rd century for the actual books that were collated into the New Testament. There isn't, and all of that aside, there isn't. And it's just actually talking factual nonsense. There is no evidence. At the beginning of the conversation, we were talking about some pagan form of Christmas. But when I asked for evidence, we managed to whittle it down to, oh no, it's actually Christmas, but it just happens to fall on the same time as one Roman festival. And Rome, as you know, became Christianised, and therefore, they didn't want everyone having days off. But we were supposed to be debating Easter. So when you're saying I need to choose my words and stop misquoting, I'm going to say, no, this is the topic, Easter. I'm going to say that your book misquotes the resurrection account because it lies about the crucifixion. I do. I've got a Quran and a Bible. I do. Another one. But Allah wrote it, so how can it be corrupted?
Take 30 seconds.
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, so basically, in a nutshell, if you deny the crucifixion, For one, you're historically incorrect because, of course, like Josephus, other independent sources, we don't need them. But all scripture is God-breathed. So whether it's Paul, who some people don't like, whether it's James, whether it's the Synoptic Gospels or otherwise, we as Christians believe they're all God-breathed. And therefore, what God wants in the canon is what happened in the canon. There was no...
Yeah. All right. So we're going to move back to Easter because this is the initial topic.
And avoid the
now the
Allah
reason,
question.
the reason why Easter is completely made up and why the resurrection story is because the resurrection story is completely made up. First point, the reason we know it's been made up is because the amount of contradictions between Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John to do with the resurrection narrative are astounding.
Can you give me
Easily, I can give you some with ease, right? The amount of women at the tomb. How many angels were at the tomb? What did the angel actually say to the women? And I could go on. Where did the angel tell them to go? Was it Jerusalem? Was it Galilee? There are so many contradictions between these gospels, right? On top of that, here's a very funny bit of the whole thing. Why is it that these women who went to go and discover Jesus' body, why are they going back to the tomb? To anoint the body? But the body's already been buried. There is no reason for these women to even return back to the tomb. It's already been anointed with spices. It's already been anointed in oil.
Passover.
And that was already done by Joseph Arimathea, which by the way is a made-up place, right? The entire story is made up.
Excellent. Right, he's talking, now it's got to serious twaddle levels because you can't discount an historic event based on accounts in a book that you deem to be corrupted. That's a fallacy, or that's a circular reasoning that doesn't make sense. If he'd have said Allah said it didn't happen, I can respect that because he must believe that. But what Allah actually says is the Jews boasted that they killed Messiah. For one, the Jews didn't call him Messiah, but that's another story. They boasted that they killed Messiah, but for a surety they slew him not, nor did they crucify him. And in actual fact, the Romans crucified him. So Allah is right in that respect. He doesn't say he didn't die. He just says the Jews didn't kill him. So that aside, you can't discount. We've got the Quran, for example, is the only book in existence, other than other later, like I suppose Islamically scholarly works, that denies the crucifixion of Christ. It's foretold in the Old Testament. It is revealed in the New Testament. There are extra scriptural attestations. There are satiricists of the time who were mocking Christians because they believed it.
Right, so when it comes, again, the crucifixion, right? She's moved from the resurrection, she's on the crucifixion, no problem. We can deal with that. So when it comes to the crucifixion, we know that the Jews never believed in a Messiah that was supposed to be killed on a cross. We know the Jews never believed in a Messiah that you're supposed to drink his blood and eat his body every Sunday. We know that this is intrinsically, inherently pagan. Right? So when it comes to the death and crucifixion of Jesus, we know that this is not the Messiah that the Jews were waiting for. The Jews are waiting for a Messiah who would be victorious over the enemies of Israel. They were not waiting for a Messiah that would bring war and destruction, as we saw with the early ages of Christianity, killing the Jews, killing people who were not Christian. We know exactly what the Christians got up to in their history, and this is not what the Jews are waiting for. It is not in the Old Testament. Jesus fails every prophecy in the Old Testament.
Oh, that's such a lie. That's embarrassing. No. You can't lie about Jesus like that. It's embarrassing. Have another 20.
Thank you.
You're burying yourself.
So when it comes to this, ladies and gentlemen, Jesus fails every single prophecy in the Old Testament. In fact, if she accepts the Old Testament,
I'm not a she might have a name.
If Kay accepts the Old Testament, she has to reject Jesus. He fails by every single metric. Now we understand the resurrection is made up. Yeah, go on.
Brilliant. That's nonsense. That's utter nonsense. And not only is it nonsense, Allah made the mistake that he's accusing me of. Allah denies... sorry, now you made so many nonsense points that I can't keep up with them. But the point is, Allah based... Excuse me? Who are you? I don't know you. So the point is that, if you rewind a couple of seconds, initially he was accusing me of something to do with paganism, and Allah also failed that test because he gave that account. He said, no Jew believes that the Messiah is going to be crucified, but Allah says... they boasted they killed Messiah. So he's got it all in there that they were boasting about it either way. And that was after the fact. So how's it? So maybe he went back in time and whipped him out the cross. I don't know you again. So the point is that there are multiple fulfilled verses of the Messiah. Isaiah, we were speaking about just now, is literally fulfilled. They did call him God. He was born unto the Jews. Like, they're fulfilled. I can't help that. They're fulfilled. As to failed prophecies, time hasn't ended yet, obviously. So, I mean, there are one school of thought that believes, there's double fulfillment, but none of them have failed, and certainly not all of them, because that would be ridiculous that this guy is the only guy who's ever noticed that in 2,000 years of the most stringent critiquing. And when it comes to Islam, he said about the early years of Christianity and said like murder and crusade is wrong. But just look around you at any jihad you fancy. So it can't be wrong if Allah says you will fight, and whether you want to or not.
All right, that's good. All right,
I think
no
he's
problem.
doing it on his own.
No. All right, so we're going to focus now on Isaiah 9:6 because that's where she's going to. She
I'm
believes.
not.
Well, you just mentioned it.
Yeah.
So she believes Isaiah 9:6. Yeah, go on. Sorry. Could you stop?
Or Genesis 3. Sorry.
I'm going to start again, yeah?
No, honestly, if you could just go underneath it next time. You're doing detours
Yeah,
just to go past the camera. I'm convinced of it.
Right. Okay. Yeah, go on.
Isaiah.
Yeah. All right. So Isaiah 9:6, she says it's talking about Jesus. We know for a fact it's not talking about Jesus. All it would take is a basic reading of Isaiah. Isaiah is talking about a child that has
Born to
been
a
born.
virgin.
1 second. But has been born. In fact, the Hebrew is yulad. Yulad. Listen, yulad is very similar in Arabic, right? It's the past tense for born. Isaiah 9:6 is talking about someone who has already been born, right? Nothing to do with a future birth, a future virgin birth has nothing to do with it, right? So it's a complete misreading of the text
It's not a
from the
prophecy,
Christians.
you say?
Add 10 seconds.
Sorry. You need to read the text in your mind. Yeah, sorry, I apologise.
All right, anyway, so when it comes to Isaiah 9:6, she said it mentions him as God. Incorrect. Hezekiah, which is the one that's being talked about in Isaiah 9:6, Hezek means mighty, Ayu means God. Hezekiah. So that's why when it says
eternal
he shall be
Father,
called
just for your-
mighty God, this is the name of Hezekiah. People back then were given divine names. Now the Christians are very tricky. What the Christians do is they tried to make what is past tense, they tried to make it future tense.
He will be. Okay, so I'm going to give you
Hold on,
some.
from now on,
Right, he
if
just
anyone,
bowed down.
I'm saying anyone that interrupts, the other person gets 10 seconds. Every
Fine,
interruption.
fine. We could be here till Tuesday. So the point is that he will be born is future tense in any language. I wasn't quoting Hezekiah. I was quoting Eternal Father, and Mighty Counselor was what I mentioned earlier. I didn't mention Mighty God, although it is there in the translation of the text, which is like affirmed and from the Greek, from the Hebrew rather, straight into the English. So again, Allah, are you going to defend him or not? That's it. I just want only if he says yes. If he's no, I'll keep going. No. Okay then. So the Crusades that he mentioned, as if violence is wrong in the Quran, that's clearly incorrect. Allah said he revealed key things that he's trying to find fault with. And if you say it's corrupted, clearly you're saying he isn't all powerful. But my God is all powerful, and the evidence of the resurrection and the crucifixion again is only denied in the Quran. That's it. It's only denied in one book that has a guilty man on a cross and Satan to save you. Because if you don't sin, Allah will destroy you.
Go, 10 seconds.
Allah will destroy you. It would have destroyed you. Let's get our tenses right. If you didn't sin. Whereas in the Bible, sin is the problem and Jesus is the solution.
Perfect. Yep. Just give me a minute, yeah? Just a minute.
Are we wrapping up soon?
Yeah, let's do.
I would love it if you tried to do the Allah thing.
Do what?
Speak for Allah as opposed to the polemics against Christianity.
Well, it's
We're
Easter.
supposed to be speaking about resurrection.
Yeah,
No, we're
that's right.
supposed to be
Yeah.
speaking about Easter.
So we'll
Or whatever, yeah.
I'll go.
Whatever.
You can respond.
Yeah.
I'll go
And then
again,
wrap up,
and then
wrap up.
and then we'll wrap up.
Right, a minute
You can
each,
finish.
twice.
You can finish. Yeah, you can finish.
Babes, I would have anyway.
Yeah, I know you would.
I'd have come back and done
I know,
another
I know.
video.
Yeah. All right.
Jesus had the last word, to be fair.
Well, we don't know how many last
He
words,
did.
about 5 or 8. Right.
He's coming
Anyway.
back according to you.
Yeah. Anyway, you ready?
Silent. Don't worry, he was silent.
All right, so
He was
when it
silent.
comes to the last, because she just mentioned last words of Jesus. The last words of Jesus, we don't know what he said. He has about 7, 8 different last words. We're not entirely sure,
Apparently
right?
he's coming
Is it unto you I commit my spirit, or is it my God, why have you forsaken me?
No,
We're not
those
too
were
sure.
first. It's, "It is finished."
continent. 10 seconds. Yeah?
Sorry. Please quote the Bible as much as you want, though, please.
All right, so when it comes to the resurrection story, notice how Kay said nothing about the problem that we find about the women going back to the tomb. This man has already been buried. He's already been anointed with spices and oil by Joseph of Arimathea. It's already been done. What business What business do these women have going back to the tomb to bury and anoint a body? First of all, it goes against Jewish law because women are not supposed to touch the body of a male. Least of all, a prostitute named Mary Magdalene. Least of
She
all.
wasn't a prostitute.
Anyway,
That's factually and historically incorrect. Have 10 seconds and then go and read a book. Mary Magdalene was not a prostitute.
Okay.
It's literally,
By your standards, I guess.
no, by your standards. You know prostitutes better than I do, bro. No, you've got to have some sort of like cretin. Go for it. So I do apologise, but I'm getting vexed now.
Yeah, that's fine.
Bobby, wasn't Jesus supposed to be quiet as well?
You've got 20 seconds go.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so when it comes to Jesus, right, and his resurrection, these women had no business going back to the tomb. Let's think about why they did that. It's a plot device to get the women to go to the tomb to discover an empty tomb. It's all entirely made up. What business do women have going back to a tomb?
My go. For one, this is a rhetorical. Why would Allah make it up? He said he revealed the angel. Also, plot devices of this nature. You know the lion in the sand when Jesus speaks to the adulterous, the group who are going to stone him. Those kind of plot devices were not in existence for at least another 1,200 years. So I don't know why. Either way, he didn't defend Allah. I asked him, are you going to defend Allah? He didn't. And I didn't counter the women and that pseudo-contradiction because what I did say is Allah used that. I don't need to defend it because that's not at issue. My issue is that Allah, through Jibreel and some other texts that were laying around, denies the crucifixion and therefore the resurrection. That's my soul. That's it. Paganism aside, that's all easily discountable. And a lot of YouTube theories are also just one book, 2 books, and you can just nail it if you'll excuse the pun. There is no prostitution with Mary Magdalene. It was a misconception from the medieval period, but it's discounted as of, well, definitely today and yesterday. Seriously, in proper academic studies, it's not true. It's not proven.
All right. So, again, when it comes to these women being at the tomb, there is absolutely no reason for them to be there. They are only there because the gospel writers needed a plot device to place them at the tomb in order to discover an empty tomb. But hang on a minute. I thought they were supposed to be aware already that he was supposed to come back from the dead. Why did they think going back to the tomb would do anything? He's supposed to come back from the dead. They should know that. But instead, they don't know that. They go to the tomb, made up plot device, right? And they anoint the body. Well, they don't anoint the body because it's empty. That's the plot device. They need them to get back to the tomb, to discover the empty tomb. It is all entirely made up. She said nobody believed that Jesus was rescued from the cross. Incorrect. The Ebionites didn't believe it. Right?
Ah, they're not Christian.
Don't
Don't be silly.
Right. She's going to say they're not
Embarrassing.
Oh, thank you. So she's going to say they're not Christian, but
I
guess
just
what?
did.
When it comes to the early church fathers, that's the only information we have on the Ebionites. We know they hated the Ebionites because they went against their theology. So the only thing information we have on them is that it comes from a biased source from polemical early church fathers that did not want that narrative to be put forward.
Excellent. Honestly, Jay, I feel like I'm going to need another minute afterwards to watch back what all the nonsense he just said because I can't counter it all. The Ebionites were known at the time to be, they were rejected by mainstream early Christianity. The Gospels were not 3rd century. What else? Oh, don't tell me. Allah clearly hasn't got a defence because I asked him twice. He don't want to know. That's his last minute. What else were you saying? The women at the tomb. All right, so Passover was a traditional time of nothing gets done on Passover, as it were.
Can we give it 2 minutes now? I'm going to give you 3 minutes.
No, we're doing the wrap-ups now. You're going to do a wrap-up, and then I'm getting my minute.
Yeah. Can the wrap-up be 3 minutes each?
3 minutes? You talk so much nonsense.
All right,
I've got a pen.
Two.
Yeah, but I can't counter everything because you keep smashing it as if it's a fact.
Closing, but it's closing, though. It's closing.
Oh, well, then you can talk as much swaddle as you like. Then I didn't realise the rules had changed. Okay, so start.
30 seconds from now, yeah?
Can I? Was I at 30 seconds?
No, that's where you're at now.
Sweet. All right,
Wasn't arguing for half
nice
an
one.
hour, yeah?
Okay, Passover happened. The usual rules of engagement, as it were suspended for Passover, and that's the day that Easter is. It's a foreshadowing of Easter. So whether or not Joseph of Arimathea and his had embalmed him, the women went to the tomb. They didn't have to. Women are denigrated usually. They were given a place of honour that was unlike any plot device or any other texts of the time. They were given a position of prominence, and it wasn't just any old women. It was a few Marys, to be fair. We love a Mary. So, back at the ranch. Allah is the only deity or pseudo-deity that denies the crucifixion and resurrection. And we still can't get an answer to it, other than that he's wrong.
Right, so what's the rules now? Like,
I have no idea. The
What do you
rules
think?
are I still ain't at my
How long do
dinner.
you want the closing to be?
I agree with the
I said 2 minutes.
Go for 2, but I need a pen. Go on, yeah, and some sugar levels.
So, when it comes to Jesus, he clearly fails every prophecy in the Old Testament. There is no reason why there is nowhere in the Old Testament that talks about a crucified Messiah vicariously dying for the sins of humanity. It is mentioned nowhere. It is completely made up, and it's based on earlier pagan Roman concoctions, right? So when it comes to Jesus and Easter, again, Kay is unable to respond. It doesn't make any sense. The Gospels are very clear. The Gospels are very clear when it comes to Jesus. He was anointed, and he was anointed with spices by Joseph. It was already done. All the rituals of burials were completed. There is no reason for the women to come to the tomb, essentially dig him up, his stinking, rotting corpse that would be bloated.
It's a cave.
Right? Listen, there is no reason for you to come back to a tomb, dig up a body, and then start to anoint it, especially when it's already been anointed. And then by women, it makes no sense. It goes against Jewish halakhic law. We know these were made up. We know they are all plot devices in order to get the women back to the tomb. So Easter, as a celebration, is completely made up because the story that it's attached to is completely made up, right? So again, just going back to Old Testament has nowhere does it say that the Messiah will come, die for your sins, and then resurrect 3 days later. Although Paul, and if we want to talk about misquoting, Paul misquotes the Old Testament everywhere, and he says somewhere the dying Messiah who resurrects is found somewhere, as it says in Scripture. What Scripture? We've been looking for 2,000 years. He made it up off of a whim. Completely off a whim. He made it up. The entire tradition is made up. The resurrection narrative is made up, and we have no basis for believing this whatsoever. It's sad that Christians they anchored their belief on this made up tradition.
Alrighty then. So again with the nonsense about the Old Testament. So Psalm 22 is a direct prophecy and a fulfilled one. There's, we can run through them if you want, but I've only got 2 minutes. So we've got Genesis, obviously, I've already used that one, 3:15. The seed of the woman will, lift the curse for those who he'll crush Satan. Genesis 12, Genesis 22, Isaiah 7:14, Numbers 24:17, Genesis 49, 2 Samuel 13, Isaiah, Psalm 45, Daniel. There's a lot of them, and he hasn't given any evidence. So he says it in this sort of Zacchaeus, no disrespect, it's like more like hijab. It's a fact. This is what Elijah means, but he hasn't actually got any basis for it. And women, Jesus with Martha and Mary, she's sitting at his feet, and he's known as a rabbi to his own disciples, obviously, because that's the whole relationship there. And she says, aren't you going to send her into the kitchen to help me? And he says, no, leave her there. And in Jewish tradition, which you keep quoting incorrectly also, women were not allowed to sit at the feet of rabbis, and yet Jesus bucks that trend because, spoiler alert, he's God. So the Old Testament does prophesy. Allah can't be justified through this guy. I don't know if anyone else can do it, but it's the only book, again, which hasn't been counted for the entire thing, that denies it. And it's the only religion also, like I was saying earlier, where if you don't sin, that God would be displeased with you. So that's literally antithetical or oppositional to the message of the entire Bible, Jewish and Hebrew and Christian. We need a sinless man to atone rather than a guilty one, rather than someone who's just done a Paul Daniels and just whipped out the geezer and put another one who looks exactly like him, by the way, there. Even though, if for all his past and future tense, Allah's quoting them, that's already happened. With prophecies, if it says, with a prophecy, if it says it will happen, unto us a child will be born, you can bet your bottom dollar or shekels that is a future tense. Prophecies are quoted as future right now, and that's our wrap up. And lots of love to this guy, but Allah, you know the guy, he's in your books, you know him, man. Defend him next time. Anyway, happy Easter. Could you do me a favour though? Could you bring me any evidence? When you watch it back again, can you bring me any evidence?
Of what?
Not Islamically. Any evidence of all this stuff that you're saying? That the books were arbitrarily pulled out the air, although there was a set standard, the church fathers relied upon something or other. You said they never agreed on nothing, by the way.
We don't really have time to delve into.
I will
early
jot it
church
down
fathers.
in the comments section, and my guy here, my new bestie, will quote it back
Where's
and give me
Bob,
the.
man? Where's Bob?
Yeah. You like a bit of fog on, innit?
Yeah,
a
yeah.
bit of bobber-gob. Anywho, thank you very much. You must be under all that, because I am. And still, we ain't counted this Muppet, because he loves Easter, but this geezer says he's a pig. So please, have a go with him. Yeah, he must be sweating under all that. But listen, all of that twaddle aside, not the Jesus bits, but definitely the Easter bits, just come to Jesus. It says, you know, he didn't lay down his life other than by his own accord. It wasn't taken from him. He wasn't a victim. He is a victor through his death. There's no like, oh, how can he die? He's God. His flesh died. He was still grafting for them 3 days, and then he appeared to more than 500 people. That may well have been Jews, pagans. There weren't no Muslims there, that's for sure. So there was independent eyewitnesses. Outside of the Bible, it's attested to what the beliefs of the Christians at the time were. They weren't waiting for no Council of Nicaea or whatever he's trying to chat about to make their mind up. The first century Jews, after the crucifixion and resurrection, believed what they believed because Paul wrote to them knowing their beliefs and just tried to modify them. And after all that, I still need my lunch, so I love you lots. Please subscribe and be nice in the comments section because it's fun times. So we love JC, and he's here on Easter, and he won't come to church with me, but never mind. We're gonna lure him in. No, he's already been to church. He's one of them early risers. But yeah, Jesus is risen. The tomb was empty, and it wasn't dug up, smelling and all that. What the guy said, because it was a cave. So I think the guy's just been watching too many cartoons. All right then, lots of love. Cut!